My name is Shooter and I am late for a boat parade. Bolts fans, I know you feel me. Today though, we're going to look into the Tampa Bay Lightning's cap situation going into this offseason. If we look at the roster after the season ends and remove any unrestricted free agents or restricted free agents, and by the way, if you don't know what that means, we've got another video. Check the description of this video or somewhere on the screen here. But as of this offseason, here is what the Bolts lines look like, or close to. We know the Cooper blender never stops. Line 1, Stamkos, Point, and Cooch. Not a bad first line. The most important thing to remember is the core of this team, including these guys, Hetty, Sergei, Vasi, and a few others, is intact. And that means JBB is going to do whatever he can to give those guys a chance to win another cup. Second line, Hagel, Cirelli, Killer. Oh, wait, nope. Killer is a UFA. We'll get to him. Cirelli's contract next season goes from 4.8 to 6.25 because his extension kicks in. Hagel is back for one more year at 1.5 million. The next offseason, he will be an RFA. The Lightning are going to have to pay him. He seems to just keep getting better. Third line, Nick Paul, and we'll put Mikey Asimont on that third line with them because Mikey just signed a 2-year contract at $800K each year. The fourth line, you know Patty Maroon is back unless he retires, which I don't think he's going to do. But right now, he is all alone on that fourth line. On defense, you've got Hetty and Sergei. Fun fact, scary fact for some of you, is Sergachev's extension kicks in and he goes up to an 8.5 salary cap hit. Yes, Sergachev will be getting paid more than Hetty from now on. Chernak also has an extension that kicks in. He goes to $3 million to 5.2. Perbix had re-signed at a nice 1.125. And we still have Bogo for another year. And Darren Radish played well at the end of the season. And his $762K next year will probably still be on this roster. Two wild cards with this defense. That's Hayden Fleury's $762K hit. And Phil Myers was extended when he was traded to the Lightning, and his hit's going to be $1.4 million. It's a lot to pay a guy that is playing in Syracuse. So the question is, with those 8 defenders under contract, how does the Lightning feel about these players, especially those last 4 in Bogo, Radish, Fleury, and Myers? Unless there's a trade, it really limits the Bolts' options on upgrading this defense with someone from outside of the organization. Goalies, I know people are starting to not like Vasi at $9.5 million. Some people want him traded. Yeah, he had a little bit of a down year for Vasilevsky terms, but he kept this team in so many games, and he acknowledged that this season just didn't feel right here. Then you got the backup goalie situation. Brian Elliott becomes a free agent. I think it's doubtful they bring him back. He could retire. You never know. He could be back for one more year. So if you look at the gaps in this roster today, you've got about 4 open slots on defense. You've got a bit of a logjam on defense. And then we've got that backup goalie job to fill. And here is the problem. It's that pesky salary cap. If it goes up 1 million, which it is projected to do, you're looking at 83.5 million as the salary cap. With these players you see here, and I'm going to actually take away Myers and Fleury. Let's say they start in Syracuse. The Bolts cap total is right above 74 million, and that's giving them about 9.5 million to fill 5 spots. And usually you want more than the bare minimum of players that are going to just fill your roster. But this season, the Bolts might not have much of a choice to scratch too many players. So let's start with filling the roster with our own RFAs and UFAs, and we'll talk about that right after this.
Hockey fans, do you know what I like? I like talking about things that I love, like the Bolts. And as I edit this video, I'm drinking another thing that I love, and that is Monkey Colt Coffee. Look, there's no BS here. This is the newest flavor, toasted coconut rum. And listen, there's not much left. I'm almost out, but let me help you fill your bag. You can use my code, SHOOTY10, to get 10% off your order. They've got killer coffee. They've got awesome rum cakes, and you can grab yourself some merch while you're there. And there's a cherry on top because every time you purchase a bag of Monkey Colt Coffee, they make a donation to the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation. Now that is a cult I can get behind. Try it today. Join the cult.
If you don't know what an RFA is or a UFA, there's another video in the description of this video. We'll teach you some hockey terminology and what that means. But let's get started with our unrestricted free agents. That's Killer, Belly, Perry, Ian Cole, and Brian Elliott. If any of these guys are going to come back, it's going to have to be at a pay cut. The most notable player is Alex Killorn. He's been in this organization longer than Steven Stamkos. So that's going to be a tough one to swallow. He also has had a career year. He's 33 years old and made $4.45 million last year. Let's have a little heart-to-heart here, Bolts fans. 33, career year statistically, last chance to make bank. Personally, I think we will have to sadly say goodbye to Alex Killorn. They could sign him, but unless it's under $4 million, a pay cut, and we lose another player to free up some space, it's going to be a tough one. But this could happen. Belly and Perry are kind of the same to me at about a $1 million hit. I'd bet that the Bolts do try to bring one of them back, and I think it would more likely be Perry. Perry actually made less money when he signed and played with the Canadiens the year before joining the Lightning. And he's made $92 million in his career, and he just wants to win another cup. He also could retire. Ian Cole, I think, is probably gone. And Elliott, I think, is probably gone. But again, he could come back. So right now we're going to say no UFAs are going to come back and join the Lightning. So what about restricted free agents? The old RFAs, Ross Colton and Tanner Jeannot. Colton made $1.125 last season. Jeannot was at $800K. Those guys are both going to get bumps in salary this season. Assuming no one puts an offer sheet on either guy, which could happen, although it rarely does. And the Bolts could also match that offer, given that it's not some crazy contract that doesn't fit in the salary cap. And both these guys are eligible for arbitration as well. Most likely they will be back at a higher salary. So for giggles, let's just say that Ross Colton goes up to 3.5. And I'm basing that off an old friend, Matty Joe, who got 2.9 as an RFA last year. And if you comp their stats, sure, Matty Joe has more points, but if you look at the amount of games played, it's not even close. Plus, who doesn't want to see Ross Colton get a shot as a top 6 forward? So let's actually just put him on that second line for right now. Now, another option would be a sign and trade. If the Bolts are in that much of a squeeze, or maybe they want to bring back Killer, they could unload Ross Colton by signing him and trading him for picks and prospects. And this would be a pretty sad day for Bolts fans because Ross Colton had one of the most historic goals in Lightning history, the game-winning goal, series clinching Game 5 in the 2021 Stanley Cup Finals. But for now, we're going to say that Ross stays and hopefully gets a couple more minutes with the top 6. Jeannot is another who's going to get a pay increase. They gave up a lot to get him, so you know JBB wants to bring him back. I did a comp with Jake Evans from Montreal. Sure, he doesn't have Jeannot's edge or right hook, but look at the points that come up. Very comparable. Jake Evans got 1.7 as an RFA last year, and that is before the total stats you see here. So Jeannot should get more than 1.7. Let's go with 2.5 for now, and let's put him back on the Bolts' third line. What about the guys in the system? Well, you have a bunch of guys that need to be re-signed. Smith, Walcott, and Dumont are all unrestricted free agents. Bowsers and Kopke are restricted free agents. All of these guys played in the NHL and may see another shot, but I'm going to bring one guy up from the crunch, and that was their leading scorer. Back again, probably for the last time, ABB Alex Bear-Boulay. He's under contract, so let's give him one more shot as a bottom 6 forward and see if he can bury some biscuits in the basket. That brings us to the other guy who I think might get a shot to join the Bolts, and that's as a backup goalie, and that is Hugo. Is he ready for the NHL? I don't know. Could the Bolts find a veteran backup on the cheap? Probably. But for now, we're going to bring Hugo up. We're going to see what this guy has at the NHL level. He's not going to play a ton of games, but this will give him a chance to see what he's got. So let's bring Hugo and ABB up to the Bolts roster. Yes, there's some other guys on the crunch that could surprise us, but we're going to stick with those two. So that brings the Bolts over $81 million and gives them less than $2 million to spend on that last forward spot. So one spot left. Could the Lightning find a player in free agency? This team's still a cup contender, still a destination. For under $2 million, you can get a pretty good, probably veteran, over 35. Maybe it's Corey Perry. But who else is out there? Remember, these guys could get re-signed before they hit the open market, but what if? What if the Bolts target some of these players that are at the tail end of their career chasing that one last cup? So if you look at the list of unrestricted free agents, Zach Parise, Eric Stahl's going to be there. Eric Holla would be interesting if he'd take a pay cut. He's a little bit younger. Paul Stastny, fourth line center, get him in there for $1 million. Andrew Cogliano from Colorado, fourth line winger. So you got quite a few forwards that are probably going to hit the market that are in that category of over 35, just want to win a cup, and would probably come play in Tampa at a discount. Now let's look at some of the guys on D. And remember, we have a lot of defensemen under contract right now, but the one that's going to stick out to us Bolts fans is Shattenkirk. He's going to be a free agent, 34, might take less next season. I don't know. He knows the system though, so he could come in and not miss a beat. Another guy that knows the system, Luke Schenn, played pretty good in the playoffs, brings that edge that JBB likes. So he might take 1.5. He'll actually probably get paid more this offseason. So he might not even be within the budget. There are other guys available as unrestricted free agents, but I'm not looking at anyone under 30. These are just some of the guys that jumped out at me, but I want to know what Bolts Nation thinks. What do you think is going to happen this offseason? Will the Bolts keep both Ross Colton and Tanner Jeannot? Does Killer take a pay cut to retire with the Bolt on his jersey? Does Belly or Perry come back? Who's the backup goalie? Does anyone come up from Syracuse and emerge like Nick Perbix did last year? Do we bring in a veteran UFA on a discount to try to win a cup? JBB, sir, you have a busy offseason. At least you don't have too many draft picks to worry about. Until next time, go Bolts.